Dallas Mavericks have taken over the NBA by storm. I mean, between having an 8-2 record ever since the NBA trade deadline and their players playing better than ever, this team looks more like a championship contender than it ever has. But how did this happen? How did the Mavs go from a team with an old Dirk Nowitzki and seemingly no future to a team with the best superstar in the NBA right now, Luka Doncic, one of the best two men in the entire league, Kyrie Irving, a rookie that looks like he's going to be a generational all-star and generational talent, and other great pieces surrounding them that might propel them to the promised land? Well, in this video, I'm going to break down how this all happened and why the Mavs are so good right now. So, you know what? Let's just dive right into it. Mavericks, up until last night, just went on a 7-game win streak. And it's been mainly because of the pieces that they picked up in the deadline. I mean, hey, Luka even missed some of those games and they still won them. They just snapped their winning streak to the Pacers, but it still looks very good for them. Currently, their roster looks absolutely stacked, with 4 players averaging above 10 points per game, and about 7 more averaging more than 8 points per game. You have Luka, the league leader in points, averaging 34. Kyrie averaging 25, Tim Hardaway Jr. with 17, and Daniel Gafford, who is one of the pieces that they just picked up from the Washington Wizards, averaging 11 points per game for them, to put that along with 9 rebounds and assists and 2 blocks, which is just really great numbers. In that same NBA trade deadline, they also picked up Grant Williams and PJ Washington, who Grant Williams is averaging 8.1 points per game, and his defense has been absolutely stellar, averaging 1.1 stocks per game. And of course, you have the other guy, PJ Washington, who is averaging 8.55 and 1.6 assists per game. It's looking really, really good with the pieces that they have just picked up. And frankly, they have never looked better than this. And I don't really know why that is. But then you look at Luka Doncic. His progression has been nothing less than spectacular. 34 points, 8.8 rebounds, 9.5 assists, and a steal and a half per game are just insanely, insanely good numbers. And he is a big reason of why they're so good. Then there is, of course, Derek Lively II, who they drafted this year with a pretty late pick. And he has been a huge contributor to them, averaging 9 points per game, along with 7.6 rebounds, 1.3 steals, and leading the team in blocks with 1.4 is a massive contribution. To get the full history of this team, we have to go back all the way to 2011, because that is when the Dallas Mavericks won the NBA championship, and they believed that they were still a championship contender. Since then, they didn't win a single championship or even make it to the finals. And that's when we flash forward to 2017, where they signed Maxi Kleber, they signed Nerlens Noel, and they waived a lot of players. Now, this wasn't huge except for the signing of Maxi Kleber, because he was a great player and later up ended up being a trade chip for a pretty big trade, and I'll get to that soon. Then you had Dennis Smith Jr. being signed by the Mavericks in 2018. Also huge. You also had the drafting of Luka Doncic that year, which was, of course, the thing that turned their franchise around. But it wasn't always like this. In fact, they originally drafted Trae Young with that pick, but traded him for Luka Doncic on draft night for Trae Young and a pick in a later draft, which later turned out to be Clint Capella. I think we all know who won that trade. Then in 2019, Luka Doncic was, of course, re-signed for a good number of years. That was pretty huge for them. In 2020, nothing much happened. You just had James Johnson being fined and Luka getting yet another bag. After that, nothing really too big happened. You had the development of Jalen Brunson as a backup, but this team really just wasn't too good. Now, in 2022, you have Josh Green exercising his option and staying with the team. You have Kemba Walker also exercising his option and staying with the team. Kemba didn't end up being anything big, but he did end up being a trade piece for the trade that just happened with Daniel Gafford. Now, 2023 was an interesting year because this was, of course, the year that Jalen Brunson left in free agency. This was pretty huge for the Mavericks because, of course, you don't want one of your best players to leave. However, they were able to recoup over the offseason and pick up a rim-rolling center for Luka Doncic. That is, of course, Derek Lively II. They drafted him, and as I said earlier, he looks phenomenal. Then, this trade deadline is really when the Mavericks became active. First off, you had the Mavericks and the Thunder do a draft pick trade, where the Mavericks acquire this year's first-round pick and a 2028 first-round pick from the Thunder in exchange for a 2028 first-round pick from the Mavericks. Then, you had Daniel Gafford being traded for Richaun Holmes and a 2024 first-round pick. You then had the trade for P.J. Washington, who was traded to Dallas from Charlotte with a 2024 second-round pick and 2028 second-round pick for Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and a first-round pick. This was the trade that propelled them to being such a good team. As I said earlier, they've been on an 8-2 run. They have a plus 17.3 net rating. The Gafford/PJ dynamic athleticism is what this roster desperately needed. Their athleticism is currently carrying them right now. Lively is having one of the most underrated rookie seasons in a while. Luka and Kyrie are healthy, and the superpowers of this team are just clicking. It is definitely a serious team, and they are poised to strike in this year's playoffs. You have Luka, Kyrie, Dante Exum, PJ Washington, and Derek Lively as your first unit. Second unit, Jaden Hardy, Tim Hardaway Jr., Josh Green, Derek Jones Jr., Daniel Gafford, Maxi Kleber, and Dwight Powell. Those are 12 contributing players to this Dallas Mavericks team. Ladies and gentlemen, the GM of the Dallas Mavericks has done something that looks impossible. He turned a team of one good player, Luka Doncic, into a dynasty. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.